Welcome back to Become a Calm Mama. I'm your host. I'm Darlene Childress. I'm a life and parenting coach. I'm also a parent educator. So I spend a lot of time learning about parenting, understanding parenting. I've studied parenting, studied child development, dynamics, psychology, all of the things that go into raising emotionally healthy kids. And part of that, of course, is your mental health, how you think and feel about yourself and your kids and what your job is as a parent and what you're responsible for will inform how you think and feel about yourself. Your mental health, a lot of times, is determined by the external factors that happen in your life as well as your internal dialogue. And so I'm here to help you become a calm mama. And when I think about what becoming a calm parent really is, it's really having a healthy mental health, right? That you're emotionally healthy. When we talk about raising emotionally healthy kids, I'm talking about your kids being able to manage stress and manage the negative emotions that come up with difficult circumstances and manage that stress in a healthy way. I was very curious last week when the Surgeon General Vivek Murthy comes out with an advisory for parents and for mental health professionals and communities and schools and doctors and all of that. And he says, hey, guess what? I'm issuing an advisory on the mental health and well-being of parents. The title of the document is called Parents Under Pressure. I thought it was really interesting, so I dove deep into it. I read it's like 36 pages, this entire research paper on why parents are stressed, what's going on, and what we can do about it. And I thought it was really encouraging to read that we're somebody who's in charge of things like mental health and our physical and mental health, right? The Surgeon General is addressing this chronic problem, and that is that parents are stressed. And of course, I say that, and you might be thinking, duh, right? Of course, I'm stressed. Tell me something I don't know. But I wanted to talk about it on the podcast because I know that part of compassion is when somebody comes alongside and they narrate your difficult circumstance for you. They name the emotions that come up when you're experiencing that circumstance, and then they help you with some solutions, some strategies to cope with that difficult circumstance and the emotions that come up. That's my job as a life coach, and that's what I teach you to do when we do the connection tool with our kids. When you practice compassion with your kids, you are essentially helping them understand what is going on in their life that is creating this difficult situation and these difficult feelings, and then what they can do to cope. Now, what is going to impact your kids negatively is your stress. And that's what is really revealed in this advisory notice, is that when stress is severe or prolonged, it can have a harmful effect on the mental health of you, of course, and it affects your kids. And there was a part of the study that did say that that's been proven, that it has been shown that your mental health affects the well-being of your children. And when you have a lot of stress in your life and you're not managing it well, it's not just stress itself. It's really like you have the stress and how are you handling it? Are you dumping it on your kids? Are you emotionally checking out? Are you, feeling overwhelmed and not getting your stuff done? Then if that might create a problem for our kids. So that's why this is mentioned, is that when we have stressed parents and caregivers, that stress is being passed down to children in direct and indirect ways. And then that impacts the health and well-being of our entire society. And that's why the Surgeon General of the United States was like, everyone, we need to pay attention. And it's not a parent blame game. It's not, oh God, parents are fucking up their kids. It's really our society is creating an unsustainable environment for parents, and we need to address the ways that we are supporting parents, and we need to create better strategies to support parents, which is cool, right? We have this culture, this pervasive, stressed out parenting culture. And I'm going to walk through the types of stress that you might be experiencing And as you listen, you could be like, oh, I don't have that one. Or, oh yeah, I have that one. And as you listen, be thinking about, okay, that is a stress for me. Let me think about how I can cope better. Maybe I need to develop some strategies around that, get some support in this area so that it doesn't cause me so much stress. Can we get rid of this stressor? Sometimes. Sometimes we can alleviate it. We can get rid of it, but sometimes we can't. You have a newborn and you don't sleep because they don't sleep. You can't get rid of your newborn, okay? But you can manage your tired body in a way that's loving and supportive and take better care of yourself by sleeping more, whatever it is. You can't necessarily get rid of the stressor, but you can deal with the stress different. So let's talk about why we are so stressed. So the first thing is that parenting itself is stressful. This has been true for, millennia, right? Having small children or raising kids is going to be a mental health challenge for you. It's going to be stressful for you. When they're in early childhood, the stressors, of course, I just mentioned it. One is sleep disturbances, and one is finding out how to be a parent, this new parental role, learning how to do it is really, anytime you learn something new, it's stressful. And then balancing work and family and like your co-parent, if you have one, it can be very stressful those beginning years because, you're like new to it and you're trying to figure out how this new child in this life stage fits. And then you get kind of used to it. You know how it goes. Your kids sleep through the night a little bit more. And they get into their mid-childhood and the new challenges show up because your child has a bunch of new stressors in their life. They are emotional and social and cognitive and physically transitioning. And so you're helping them manage that. And that is hard. Remember a couple episodes ago, I said they're the 3 stages of parenting where the first is your body, the next is your mind, and the third is your heart. And in this what did he call this thing? Parents under pressure. In this advisory statement, he breaks them down into these 3 stages. Doesn't call them body, mind, heart, but kind of the truth is in the beginning, you're physically very stressed. In the middle childhood, you're mentally very stressed. And then in the later adolescent years, you have stress because your child is starting to need independence and they have risk-taking behaviors and they have their peers influencing them. And that pulls on your emotional health. Yeah. So we have in general, parenting itself is stressful. And that's just kind of true. But then we add a bunch of these other stressors like money, financial strain, economic instability, just for the whole culture, like where's the future jobs? And a lot of industries are shrinking and, robots are coming and AI is coming and all that. And so we all kind of feel a little bit of financial insecurity, maybe not for ourselves, but for our kids. And then, of course, if you can't meet your kids' basic needs, you can't pay for childcare, can't pay for your kids' health care and their education, that financial stress is going to be intense, especially when you are financially responsible for another person or many people. How much food you have to buy and how many clothes you have to get and how big your house has to be and your car has to fit them. And, there's so many financial strains. So we have kind of the parenting itself. We have the money strain. We have the actual time. I thought this was a really interesting statistic. They compared how much time mothers and fathers, in the traditional sense, spent caregiving to their children in 1985 versus in 2022. So this was fascinating. For mothers, there was a 40% increase in each week, how much time a parent spent on child care, actually giving care to their children, caring for them. It went from 8.4 hours a week in 1985 to 11.8 hours in 2022. That means hands-on time that you're really taking care of somebody else's body, physical needs, things like that. It doesn't really include the amount of time you spend with your children because obviously you're spending more than 11 hours a week with them. But if you think about 11 hours of concentrated child care time, that's an hour and a half a day of time where you're just focused on your children's care. There aren't that many discretionary hours that we have, right? We're sleeping for a bunch of the day. The kids are at school. We're at work. How much time do we really have available? Not that much. And then if you think about almost 2 hours a day is going to your kids. That's a lot. Now, the increase from fathers was huge, kind of cool. So in 1985, they spent about 2.6 hours a week with children, like doing childcare duties. And then in 2022, they spent 6 hours a week. Still not have even reached the same number of hours that mothers did in 1985. And it's like about half. But if you kind of split that together, you're like, wow, so one parent, if you have a 2-parent home with mother and father, you have almost 12 hours with the mother and 6.5 with the father. So that means the child is getting 18.5 hours of primary care given to them a week. It's a lot of focused time, right? And then you have to add in work commitments, family responsibilities, taking care of aging parents, of course, feeling conflicted. I should be working. I should be with my kids. All that guilt, that burnout, that is real. So taking care of children is very time consuming. So we have sort of these practical things that are true, right? We have like the money stress, the time stress. Then we get into sort of the mental and emotional stress of parenting. One is the mental load. There's a significant amount of mental labor involved with parenting, right? Balancing complex schedules, anticipating your kids' needs, making hundreds of decisions a day on behalf of them, monitoring their progress. When you are using so much of your mental capacity to focus on your child's problem solving, that leaves you a lot less capacity to focus on other things. And it can negatively impact your own cognitive functioning, your psychological well-being. When you are consumed by thinking about someone else's well-being, you're not thinking about yours. If you're consumed with thinking about what your child is eating and how much they slept and whether their clothes are clean and whether you've signed up for camp and all of that, you're not really able to shift gears and you don't have any more mental thought to think about yourself. That's why self-care is so hard for moms, because they're like, I can barely even think about myself, let alone think about what I want to do in my free time. What are you talking about? I don't have free time and I don't have any money, right? I don't have any brain power. I don't have any time. I don't have any money. I'm done. So yes, that is some stress. Then we add in, we're hearing that kids are in mental health crisis. So we start to worry about their mental health. We worry about gun violence, drugs and alcohol and bullying. So we're fearful for their physical health. We have so much concern and confusion over tech and social media. Nearly 70% of parents say that parenting now is more difficult than it was 20 years ago. And that's because of technology and social media and fear of violence. So we have all of these like kind of existential threats happening that we can't put our finger on, we don't really have control over, and that creates a lot of stress. When you have a lot of fear in your body and in your mind and you can't solve for those fears, it creates existential stress. And so we have, our kids' mental health, we have tech, we have their physical health. We just went through a pandemic. You're like, are my kids okay? Right? That was a huge physical health crisis in our society. And, we're now thinking like, oh my God, my kid's vulnerable. It's scary. So we have those kinds of fears in the mix. So we've got the practical stuff, we've got the fears mixing in, and then we have sort of the cultural situation, primarily cultural pressure. So there's like some sort of perceived parenting standard that everybody's doing it right and you're doing it wrong, which by the way is not true because I work with parents. I know you guys are all amazing parents and you also are struggling. Like that's just true. We think there's some sort of parenting standard and that you're not meeting it, right? You're thinking you're not meeting it. So you have like expectations and norms and pressures from the culture. And then of course you're wanting to not not do it like your parents. So you're learning new things. And, we are also looking at our kids like, oh my God, they need to be more successful and there's not enough to go around. Like, we don't understand the future. We don't know how to set our kids up for success. So we better do everything. And that is going to lead to burnout. You cannot do everything, right? You cannot prepare children for everything that could happen to them in the future. But because we can't really picture what the future is going to be like, plus, like climate crisis. I mean, there's so much going on that as a parent, it feels like almost like an existential threat. And we're like feeling pressure to perform and do it perfectly in order to protect our kids. Because, everyone's like, I don't want to fuck up my kids. But that pressure is going to create stress. And then you're going to hand the stress over to your kids, which is going to make them struggle with their mental health. So I'd rather you drop the pressure, feel better and happier, and like say no to things. Don't put so much time demand on yourself. Don't let bedtime go for like an hour and a half. No, that's crazy pants. Training your kids. Like, I do one book and one song and one kiss and 2 minutes of laying down and I walk out. And they're going to struggle, but that's okay. Thinking about how to better take care of yourself, knowing that these stresses are there, is going to be really important. Learning how to set better boundaries for yourself, what you say yes to, what you say no to. Okay, I'm getting into the action steps. The last stressor, I thought this was really interesting, is the parental isolation and loneliness. Parents, even though we're more connected through social media, it's not really serving us because we're using social media to create parenting standards that are unrealistic and to create expectations and norms about milestones and birthdays and, how we're supposed to act as parents. But we don't have the support that we actually need to show up that way as parents. What we're seeing in the literature is that 42% of parents experience loneliness and feel left out compared to 24% of non-parents. So 24% of non-parents experience loneliness and feeling left out, but 42% of parents. So we have parents in these little silos of isolation and loneliness. And when you are alone and you feel like you're not doing a good job, you're going to feel more stressed. You're going to feel like you're not doing it right. You need to do more, do better. And that can lead to more burnout, which can lead to more stress. All this is to say is that if you're feeling stressed as a parent, it's not because you're not doing it right. It's not because there's some magic formula that you haven't figured out yet. It's not because all the other moms know how to do it and you don't. That's not what's happening. Your stress is because of the expectations that maybe you've put on yourself, some of the fears that you have that you're not managing well, and some of the time strain because of overcommitting, which comes from a lot of times the feeling of anxiety. Of course, the financial pressure is real and that can be very stressful. And it might mean buying less things, not, contributing to consumeristic culture. Like your kid doesn't need a new backpack every year. If you are struggling with money, you don't need to do that, right? So we look at these stressors and you start to realize, oh, yes, I am stressed because of all these things that are happening in my society and all these things that are happening in my head. So the ones in your head, we can really deal with easily. The ones in society, you can also learn to manage better. So what is Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, recommending? So he has 4 primary action steps that he recommends or that the team recommends for our society. So the first one is a societal shift in the perspective on parenting. This is kind of a bigger picture action item, but it's like, hey, we should value parents more. We should give them more support. We should see it as a vital part of our society. So that's beautiful. I love that. So that leads him to the second one, which was societal support. So that meant investing in education, investing in the safety of children, investing in the health of children, and creating communities where friendships and practical assistance and an emotional support systems are created for parents, right? And then knowing that the more you support parents, the more the children will be supported. I see that in my practice all the time. When the parent comes in, they come in because their child is typically behaving in a way that they don't love. And we work on that, but we also work on the way that you think and feel about your kids and yourself and your family and the world. And you do all that mindset shifting and you feel so much better. So yes, you need support. The third thing he recommends is being more open. He says we need to talk openly about the stress and struggles that come with parenting. And I see this. I've been doing this for a long time. And I've been saying the quiet part out loud for a long time. The first time that ever happened to me was at a little mommy group. And I said, I feel like my son is abusing me. He was 4 years old. And my friend was like, that's not normal. You might need to get some help. And I was like, wait, what? Because I said the quiet part aloud. And that sent me on a 15-year journey to get support. And now I do my job here that I help you. So we do need to be more honest. We need to talk about that we're having a tough time, that we are struggling with the evolving demands of parenting, that we are struggling with the financial strain and the family issues and how to adjust to technology and all of it. We need to say, I need help. And we need to have open dialogues about these challenges so that we can combat the feelings of shame and guilt. That's what we do in our programs. I've noticed that over and over and over, when someone joins the Call Mama Club and they listen to coaching just once or twice, even one time, they're like, oh my God, that's me. And then they get support. They watch somebody else get supported and loved on by me and get strategies, and those strategies work. And then they come back the following week, they feel better. You're like, oh, this is a place of hope and love and support. So it's really cool. You really can't shock me. And because of my dynamic, you can't shock the group. We're just like, yep, felt there. Yep, been there. Yep, I've had that thought too. Yep, I've experienced that stress before too. Yes, that makes sense to me. Everyone in the club is validating your experience. And that means that you don't need to feel ashamed of yourself or ashamed of how you behave. It's so normalized. So that's beautiful. And then the fourth thing he says societal shift in perspective. We need societal support. We need to be more open and create a culture of connection. He says, we must foster a culture of connection among parents to combat loneliness and isolation. Parenting is made all the more difficult when we feel lonely, as more than half of parents do. Creating opportunities for parents to come together, share experiences and ideas, and support each other can strengthen parental well-being. When I read that, I just got so excited about the Call Mama Club. I'm not even here to pitch it, really. I just was like, oh, wow, that is what this group can offer. That's what this group is offering. It's small right now, but people who are in it, the moms who are in it, are getting so much care. They're getting so much connection. They're getting so much support. So I love that. The big action steps that he recommends for societal changes, but then there's a few in this Parents Under Pressure advisory. He goes through and talks about a few things you can do for yourself, what parents can do. And the first one, of course, is care for yourself. He says caring for yourself is a key part of how you care for your family. So obviously exercising, getting as much sleep as you can, balancing your diet, doing things that bring you joy. And of course, he acknowledges that it's difficult to prioritize yourself, right? But even small investments of time can make a meaningful difference. In my club, I have a course called Self-Care for Moms, and it's not massages and petties and mani-pedis. Those for me are things on my calendar that I have to go to, and I don't like them. I don't like having things on my calendar, like appointments that I have to go to. It feels like work. So those aren't self-care for me. But sitting quietly, drinking my coffee and playing my Wordle is self-care. Doing a few minutes outside, allowing the sun to be on my face if it's not too hot, and drinking a cup of tea or iced tea or something like that, going on a walk, reading my books, talking to my best friend on the phone. These are how I care for myself, moving my body. they don't take a ton of time, but they are really important. When you have boundaries and you protect your time and you say to the people around you, this is mommy's time, or this is the time that I need every week to myself. This is my Calm Mama break. That you are setting a healthy boundary. You don't need to feel guilt or shame about that. Instead, you can see it as how that will ultimately benefit your children, and you're modeling to them self-care. Of course, that's super important. And then taking care of your heart. So you're managing your stress, you're decreasing your stress, you're releasing some of your stress, and you're also being really loving and compassionate with yourself. He actually says this. He says, finally, it is impossible to get parenting right all the time, so being compassionate and forgiving with oneself is essential. Like the Surgeon General is telling you to love yourself deeper. How great is that? And that's what we talk about all the time on this podcast. The other two strategies that he recommends for parents is, of course, nurturing connections with other parents, joining groups, being part of your local like PTA or PFA, just so you can hang out with the other moms, going to play groups. If you're a working parent, connecting with other working parents, getting, mom nights out and stuff like that. Go play laser tag with your girlfriends. Like, go do some fun stuff. And if you're finding it hard to build a community, join mine. Join the Calm Mama Club. We want you in there. And it will be a supportive environment that helps you reduce the stresses of parenting, which is cool. You're going to get strategies and support so that you feel less stressed. The last one he recommends is that if you are struggling, get help. Go talk to your doctor or get a therapist or hire a coach. Get some support. Come to the club. It's okay for you to admit that you might need some support. It's not just okay, it's mandatory. It's vital. You must do it in order to help your children and their well-being. Okay, that was kind of a lot. I hope that you feel like more seen and more understood, and that you can kind of understand that, yeah, I am stressed and I need to do some stress-reducing strategies. That is, I hope, your takeaway, that you can kind of look through and you're like, hi, I have a lot of fear about my kid's mental or physical health. I want to work on that. Or, wow, this mental load is really intense. I want to try to figure out how to decrease it. Or, geez, we're overscheduled. I want to decrease that. I have a lot of money strain. I think I'm going to work on a budget. I'm really lonely. I'm going to join the Calm Mama Club, or I'm going to connect with some girlfriends. I'm worried about tech and I'm worried about social media. I'm going to create a tech plan for my family. If you're having cultural pressure, if you have a lot of things around yourself where you're like, I'm not doing it right, I'm not living up to the expectations I have, I'm struggling, that means you need more self-love and probably some strategies. So looking at the stressors and then making a plan to how you're going to deal with those stressors is really, really important. And you don't have to do it alone. I'm here for you. And I know that you probably have other people in your life who love you and care about you. And if you're struggling, just say, hey, raise your hand. Say, hey, I need some help here. Maybe your first step is booking a consult with me, a discovery session with me, just talking to me about it. I'll help you figure out what your next step is. So I encourage you to sign up and connect with me. You can do that on my website, calmmamacoaching.com. There's a place to book a call on the programs page or the about page. All right. I hope you have as stress-free week as possible and that you are learning how to take excellent care of yourself every day. All right. I'll talk to you next time. Hey mama, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, I want to encourage you to do two things. The first is go to my website, calmmamacoaching.com, and get a copy of the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. You'll get a step-by-step breakdown of the most important tool I teach, which is the pause break. And you'll also get 40 ideas to reset your body and balance your nervous system so you don't have to yell at your kids. You can get a copy of that, again, at my website, calmmamacoaching.com/stop yelling. The other thing I'd love for you to do is go to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this podcast so that other moms can discover empowering and helpful, practical parenting strategies just like you did today. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. It means a lot to be in your ear every week and to support you on your parenting journey.